Hello, everyone. Today I want to talk to you about an amazing character in the Bible, a woman called Rahab. Rahab is the picture of a redeemed past. We all have a past. We all have a time when we were away from God, and we did a lot of things that probably today we would be ashamed of, or we wouldn't want to talk about, or we wouldn't want to share. However, the story of Rahab is um, is a great encouragement, uh, reminding us of what God can do with somebody's past, how He can take my mess, make it into a message. He can take my past and turn it into an amazing and glorious future. Rahab in the Bible um, has attached, her name has always been attached to um, the definition of her occupation. And if you read and if you look up the name Rahab in the Bible, it's always attached to Rahab the prostitute or Rahab the harlot. And so immediately it gives you a sense of what sort of past she had to deal with for the rest of her life. But the amazing thing is that Rahab is one of the four women mentioned in the genealogy of Jesus. Rahab is also mentioned in Hebrews 11, the whole theme of faith, where the writer tells us that it was by faith that Rahab hid the spies in the time of Joshua. James 2 also tells us that it was Rahab's actions that made her righteous whenever she trusted God at the time of the spies. So Rahab is mentioned three times in the New Testament, which is an amazing thing to think about. She is one of the four women in the genealogy of Jesus, which is an incredible thing. So in spite of her dodgy past, yet Rahab stands out as a woman of faith, as a woman of action, as a great example of what God can do when we abandon ourselves into His hands. Now, her story in the Old Testament is found in Joshua chapter 2. And if you remember the story of Abraham, when God chose Abraham and Sarah to be the people that God would bring a new nation, a nation that is going to be a light to the whole world, to all the other nations. And from there, we have the nation of Israel that God had chosen to be that light. But God has said to Abraham very early in his story that his people, God's people, will be slaves for 400 years in Egypt. And that's what we read towards the end of Genesis. We read how Joseph becomes the prime minister of Egypt. But after Joseph dies, the Israelites become slaves in Egypt. And that is for about 430 years. At the end of that, God chooses Moses. And God chooses Moses for a very specific job, to bring the people of God out of Egypt. And Moses does that. However, the people of God are disobedient. So there is a delay of 40 years, 40 years in the desert, and they just go into circles until finally they arrive and they are at the border of the promised land, Canaan, the land that God had promised Abraham way back. If you remember, we talked about Abraham and Sarah. And so now they're about to cross the Jordan River into the promised land. But because of Moses' act of disobedience, God says to Moses, you are not going to be the one bringing the people into the Canaan, into the promised land. It's going to be your disciple, your apprentice Joshua. That's why we have the book of Joshua. And so Joshua is now the new leader. Moses is dead. Moses is gone. Joshua is the new leader of God's people. And they are about to cross the Jordan River into the promised land. And just before they cross the Jordan River into the promised land, Joshua sends a number of spies, 2 spies from the camp into the promised land. And the first city they come to is the city of Jericho. Jericho was known as a powerful, strong city, very strong walls, tall walls. And these spies, we read in Joshua chapter 2, come to the city. Obviously, they're coming undercover in a sense. And they go to the place where all the visitors, all the travelers go, most likely to something that would resemble today as a hotel. This hotel is run by a woman called Rahab. And the Bible tells us that alongside her business, she was also a prostitute, probably a well-off woman that was running, let's say, a not so respectable hotel. And when the spies come to this place, obviously looking for lodging, the king of Jericho hears about it. He sends soldiers, and Rahab pretends that they're not there. She hides them. And she hides them for a very specific reason. She hides them because she had heard about God. And obviously, deep within her, there is a sense in which she is probably sick and tired of the life that she's living. She hears about this God who is nothing like all the other gods of the of Jericho or of the Canaanites. And then she wants a new start. She wants a new life. She wants to follow this God that is personal, powerful, real. And because she hides the spies, she makes a deal with the spies. She says, whenever you come and destroy the city, promise me that you're going to save me and my family. And the spies make that promise and ask her to, on the day when the city falls, to leave outside a window a scarlet thread, a scarlet rope. And her house was on the wall of the city, so it would have been easy for them to see the scarlet rope and immediately save her and her family. Now, what amazes me about her story is that although she runs this dodgy establishment, although she seems to be well positioned with the king, because when the spies arrive in the city, she's ordered to hand them over. She's not immediately killed. So obviously she is one of those probably one of those amazing spy thrillers that you could read, like a book of spies and intrigue and but that's Rahab's life. And although that sounds exciting, and yet there is a place in everybody's life when you get tired of sin, when you get sick and tired of a life that is filled with guilt and shame, a life of being used and abused, a life of lack of freedom. And it seems to me that Rahab, like a lot of women in today's sick world, feels caught or trapped into this brutal life. She hides the spies, but what I also love about this, it's her reason. Let me read from Joshua chapter 2, verse 8. Before the spies went to sleep that night, Rahab went up on the roof to talk with them. I know the Lord has given you this land, she told them. We are all afraid of you. Everyone in the land is living in terror. For we have heard how the Lord made a dry path for you through the Red Sea when you left Egypt. She refers to the time that God split the Red Sea and allowed the people of Israel to walk through the sea on dry land. And then when Pharaoh and his army came, the sea came back and drowned them all. And we know what you did to Sihon and Og, the two Ammonite kings east of the Jordan River, whose people you completely destroyed. No wonder our hearts have melted in fear. No one has the courage to fight after hearing such things. For the Lord your God is the supreme God of the heavens above and the earth below. So her reason is very specific. She is hiding the spies, and she's making this bargain with them, not necessarily out of terror, but mostly because she recognizes that their God is so powerful and real compared to all these other gods that seem to be gone, absent. And here's what she says. Now, swear to me by the Lord that you will be kind to me and my family since I have helped you. Give me some guarantee that when Jericho is conquered, you will let me live along with my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all their families. We offer our own lives as a guarantee for your safety, the men agreed. If you don't betray us, we will keep our promise and be kind to you when the Lord gives us the land. Then, since Rahab's house was built on the town wall, she let them down by a rope through the window. Escape to the hill country, she told them. Hide there for 3 days from the men searching for you. Then, when they have returned, you can go your way. Before they left, the men told her, we will be bound by the oath we have taken only if you follow these instructions. When we come into the land, you must leave this scarlet rope hanging from the window through which you let us down. And all your family members, your father, mother, brothers, and all your relatives must be here inside the house. If they go out onto the streets and are killed, it will not be our fault. But if anyone lays a hand on people inside this house, we will accept the responsibility for their death. If you betray us, however, we're not bound by this oath in any way. And then she says, I accept these terms. I'm fascinated by this story. I'm fascinated that it is God's business to turn, as I said to you, a mess into a message, to turn a tragedy into a life of joy. And obviously, one thing that you notice here, the scarlet or the red thread is, again, a topic that goes throughout the Bible that leads us to Jesus. It is the blood of the Lamb that saved the people of Israel from Egypt. It is the red scarlet thread that saves Rahab. It is the blood of Jesus that saves us from sin, the red of his blood. So it's a topic that goes throughout the Bible. Her future, because of her faith, because of her actions, is secure. She and all her family are saved. She takes place in Israel's history. She becomes part of Jesus' family tree. Not only that she becomes part of Israel's history, but in the genealogy of Jesus in Matthew 1, she seems to be the mother of Boaz, who is the husband of Ruth, another wonderful person in the Bible, another woman in the Bible that seems to be an amazing story of faith. So what are the lessons that I'm learning from Rahab? Rahab takes a risk. It's not a blind, crazy risk. It's a risk based on what she heard and believed to be true about God. Number two, she trusted in God and his people. She was willing to make a bargain, to agree to allow these spies to go and hide them, to save them in order for God's people to get the information that they needed. So she trusted in God. She trusted in the stories that she heard. And then the third lesson is that she left her old life behind. The moment Jericho is taken, she is incorporated into the family of God. And this is what happens when God saves somebody with a painful past. God brings them into his family, and they are incorporated into his family. Let me finish with this amazing thing. When the walls of Jericho, when the archaeological site was discovered in 1907, it was excavated up to 1909. They noticed one amazing thing in the ruins of Jericho. One part, whenever they took an aerial photograph, they realized that one part of the wall was still intact, stood when all these other walls crumbled, and there were clear signs of rocks displayed and bricks being displayed. There was one side with the little window that was completely intact, which proves that the story of Rahab is true. The Bible reminds us of Rahab, reminds us of her faith, but also of her action. Faith without action, faith without works is dead. She trusted God, then she took action in order for her future to be secured in God. I pray that as you discuss the life of Rahab, you will be encouraged to have faith, but also you will be encouraged to take action, because God is in the business of transforming people's lives. He is able to take a dodgy, broken, painful past and turn it into a glorious future. May God bless you and encourage you as you discuss the life of Rahab.